I'm Jacob Feldman.
And I'm Eben Novi-Williams, and this is the Bucketsquad is Here sports business podcast, the Sporticast. We are here excited in the studio live, Jacob, with Zach Miller, the president of Bucketsquad. Bucketsquad, of course, the media entertainment e-commerce platform built around YouTube sensation Jesser. Zach, first of all, thanks for being here.
Thank you guys for having me.
I think some of our listeners, the younger ones, probably understood everything I just said. I think some of our older ones maybe didn't understand a word of what I just said. So I want you to start with some numbers. Give us a sense, the scale, subscriptions, reach, whatever it is that Bucketsquad has right now.
So I think the best data points are around the Jesser YouTube channel. We just crossed 36 million subscribers. And for a while now, we've been seeing around 100 million monthly uniques. So reaching 100 million monthly unique consumers on that YouTube channel pretty much every month.
So you're a little bigger than the Sporticast is what I'm hearing here.
As of recording.
Yeah. As of recording. The NBA, I looked before we started, about 25 million YouTube subscribers, which I think says something. I'm not sure exactly what. I guess maybe I'll ask you. What does that say about what Jesser's building, what you guys are building, what the NBA is doing on social? What's your read there?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with like, what is your primary mode of distribution? So for the NBA, primary mode of distribution is the ESPN deal, the NBC deal, and the Amazon deal. And so I think YouTube is a secondary distribution channel for them. I think for us and for Jesser, YouTube is the primary distribution channel, and our audience is younger and highly engaged on YouTube. And I think what it sort of shows this shift from media where everything was distributed through intermediaries, and now everything is distributed direct to the consumer. And so we have scale, but we also, on these digital channels, but we also have incredibly high engagement on those channels because these are kids who grew up not watching TV, sort of watching streaming, but like their primary content consumption behavior is on YouTube.
I want to get into the business that you guys have, but first I want to ask about your trajectory. You started at McKinsey. You held a number of executive jobs in what I would consider to be traditional media.
Yeah.
What opened this door? What was the impetus behind shifting to a very modern and obviously future form of media and content creation?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, personally for me, you're right, I was working in mainstream media environments and doing strategy and business development. And I really didn't like that. Like, I am much more excited about building things and like getting out there and actually doing stuff and making PowerPoint presentations and financial models on businesses that didn't actually get out of the garage was like deeply frustrating for me. But also my work at Spotify opened me up to learning a lot about YouTube, because Spotify at the time and still today wants to build an open advertising platform similar to YouTube. So in that job, I was studying YouTube and seeing the growth, the volume of different creators who are making material amounts of money. And I had this idea that like maybe there are some creators out there who want to take their YouTube audience and build a diversified multi-channel, multi-revenue stream media business of the future. And it just so happened that Jesse and the team that he had in place were thinking the exact same thing and had, gone out to the market, hired a search firm, and were looking to fill this role. And they were very early looking for that. I think at the time, maybe Mythical and Mr. Beast had people in roles like that, but not too many others. Mm-hmm. And so I was out looking for something like that. They were out looking for someone to fill that role. And we sort of met in the middle. And man, it's just been the greatest thing ever. I have never been happier doing anything in my life. It's like the intersection of media and YouTube and sports and the power that individuals have to actually connect directly with their audience. Being a part of that is just more than I could have ever dreamed of.
So what was the business when you started? What is it now, and what are you building towards?
I think, to be honest, a lot of what we have in place now is what was in place before. I think we've just built infrastructure around it and driven a lot of growth and, sort of put discipline around it. But at the time, I think it was the Jesser YouTube channel, a bunch of social media channels that are sort of similar or like reflect the same sort of Jesser brand. At the time, it was Jesser Reacts was the second channel. And Bucketsquad Apparel was just, in its first full year of operation. The Bucketsquad apparel business has grown 10x in 2 years, which is really exciting. Now it's live. We have product in Dick's Sporting Goods. We have licenses with the NFL and the NBA and anime partners, and, other more exciting IP partners coming. Jesser Reacts has evolved into a new channel or a different name called Team Jesser. And we are starting to, we're launching a new channel in the new year around gaming, oriented around Roblox and other, more sort of interactive, community-oriented, younger audience gaming content and starting to plant seeds for a more of a constellation of businesses, consumer businesses that can super serve this young sports fan consumer.
It's interesting hearing you talk about that. We talk on this show a lot about sports teams as platform companies, right? You no longer just want to own the Wizards. You want to own the arena they play in, and you also want to own the WNBA team that plays there, and you want to own the network that you can watch the Wizards and Mystics games on, right? Everybody is thinking about these things as kind of holistic flywheel businesses. And it sounds like what you guys are thinking is pretty similar, right? You have the core thing that people are watching, and now you're spinning things off ancillary businesses that all help and support the core thing.
Yeah, I mean, I do see that. I actually was just heard a video where someone was talking about how these sports teams are now launching their own production companies and financing content. And, I also
building
heard
studios.
Yeah. What is that? The Chiefs one?
Yeah. Chargers have one. I think the Chiefs have one.
Yeah. So the Chiefs apparently launched a family movie on Hallmark, and it was like the highest performing.
Did you watch
movie.
that, Jacob?
I have not yet. I'm
Okay.
saving that one. Yeah.
But it's like, it's interesting. Look, I think what this really all boils down to is fandom and what the relationship is between the consumer and the source of the fandom, whether that's talent, whether that's storytelling, whether that's sports. I mean, sports is storytelling. It's just, it's like a different form of storytelling, and it's not scripted and performed, but it is still an unraveling narrative of humans who are competing. And, all of that is, I think fandom coalesces around that. And then it becomes a question of what does that audience member want, and how can you identify what they actually want, what they will actually find satisfying? How does that overlap with creatively what you want to do, and also what you have the authority to deliver them? I think it's interesting that the Chiefs have the authority to deliver like family Hallmark content.
Right.
That's not what I would necessarily think, but football reaches all corners of like the American family experience. So it makes sense to me.
One of the things that jumped out to me as you were describing the business when you were talking about gaming content, you're trying to make your audience younger, because we, again, talk a lot to teams and leagues, and their average TV viewers, 55, maybe older, depending on the league. What do you know what the average age of a current Jesser viewer is, roughly?
Yeah, what we traditionally say is, we definitely know we have a young consumer. Sort of the newest consumer is a younger consumer. It's hard to get accurate age data on YouTube, especially if you have younger consumers. We think from independent data research that we've done that we have sort of two cohorts of core consumer. One is this sort of like 8 to 15-year-old boy.
Yeah.
And then that is probably 40% or 50% of the audience. And then maybe 40% of the audience is that next age range up, like 16 to 28 or 30. And look, I think for us, we're not looking to age down. I think we're aged down as far as, makes sense. I think our goal, hopefully, is to maintain new cohorts of these young consumers, but then stay with them as they get older and grow into their sports fandom in different ways. One of the things that we've been talking about is expanding into the podcast space. Podcast.
Take your time. No rush.
Yeah. We're not trying to compete with you guys. But podcast is, you talked about like television news or television, and television news is like, television news is like 65 and older. Television in general is like 55 and older. I think podcast, you're generally seeing like millennials and older.
Yeah.
There really isn't anybody in the market who's winning the Gen Z or Gen Alpha podcast market. I think maybe YouTube as a platform is winning, and maybe Spotify is starting to compete for that consumer. But, in the sports media space, The Ringer and Barstool being sort of two of the leading, and ESPN, I guess, being the leading players, but those audiences are definitely older. Like I'm the customer for the Bill Simmons podcast.
For the audio listeners, are you comfortable sharing your age for people who can't guess based on video?
My age?
Yes.
46.
Okay, yeah.
I'm old for YouTube.
Right.
I'm like ancient for
Yes.
YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm 10 years older than the next youngest person in our company. Next oldest person in our company.
That must feel good, though, right? You've got a lot of experience.
Well, yeah. No, I think it feels good because it keeps me young.
Absolutely, 100%.
Before we started recording, we were talking about mini disc players here, and I was the only one in the room who had one, and I felt like I was a dinosaur.
It's so funny. I actually was telling my daughter, like, to get her to sleep last night, a long story of the history of the Walkman and the Discman and the iPod leading into like what she understands today
prehistory
as like subscription media, and like had no idea that like you would actually like leave the house with like tapes or like CDs.
Different era. And then it's going to be physical media coming back, right? And then at some point you're going to be distributing Jesser videos on CD again, right?
Yeah, or like
the box set for the end of the year.
No, watch-alongs, like get people together.
Sure.
I think that honestly is one of the bigger opportunities for us is community. Like
I was going to ask about events. Yeah, I imagine it's something you're thinking about a lot.
Well, for Bucketsquad apparel, we've been doing some pop-up shops.
Okay.
We've shown up at NBA All-Star at Crossover. In the expo hall. We just did a pop-up shop in Venice, California with Shopify last week, which was a great success and really awesome experience. I look at the content creator businesses, like one of the frameworks that I've heard people mention that I think is a good one is content, commerce, community. And I think from a content standpoint, we're really strong. And that was always sort of the core. I think from a commerce standpoint, Bucketsquad Apparel has been successful. And as we start expanding into other types of consumer businesses, we have a nice sort of start there. I think on the community side, that's an area where we can do more. And it just becomes, those things become harder and harder to scale as you move from one to the next to the next. And so community, live events, digital community, I think, interactive gaming as a different way. Like if you think about Roblox as a platform that is sort of similar to YouTube, but one is about kind of one directional distribution of content and a little bit of bi-directional communication. Roblox is like a bi-directional engagement platform. And, if you can build meaningful experiences for people on there, it can not only be a business opportunity, but it could be a great way to really engage with your audience and get them to engage with one another. So those are all things that we're like looking closely at and trying to figure out what the right way in is.
Can we talk a little bit about the business to the extent that you're comfortable sharing numbers? I'm curious where revenue's coming from right now. I assume a little bit of advertising, some e-commerce, YouTube. What does the bucket look like right now?
I mean,
Pun not intended.
Generally, I would say it's like 50% e-commerce apparel today, 50% media. And then I'd say the media is probably split 75-25 or maybe like 65-35 in the direction of YouTube AdSense. So we have a pretty significant scale. When you have 36 million audience members and you're publishing on a regular basis, a Jesser video generally gets within the first 30 days between 3 and 5 million views.
Wow.
And so that ends up translating to a pretty meaningful amount of AdSense revenue. I think one of the opportunities for us for growth is we've been doing a lot of great brand deal work. We have had a long partnership with Powerade. We have a long partnership going on right now with Google Pixel. We just started a relationship, like a long-term relationship with DraftKings. I think our goal is to build more of these long-term multi-brand touchpoint relationships so that it's not chasing after this deal, that deal, this deal, that deal, and that hopefully that translates to a higher like utilization rate or sell-through rate of our brand inventory, and I think there's growth opportunity.
And what are those conversations? I assume you're obviously talking about the reach, right? How, the 5 million people that watch a video right after it's posted. But I assume there's also a bit that's how integrated you can get this, the very many different ways that a company like a Powerade or even a DraftKings can feature across all of the things that you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because I think the brand and the creators' incentives are very aligned. Like, nobody wants a consumer to churn out on a piece of promotional media, right? Like, we want the viewer to stay with us and be there after the spot, and the brand wants the viewer for that spot to be as natively integrated and comfortable for the consumer and to feel authentic. And and so we try to be very thoughtful about which brands we partner with. We try to partner with brands that are native to the content, native to the audience, a good fit. And then we tried to bring our partners along to understand that we know what our audience, and when I say we, I really mean like a team of incredibly capable, young, creative, native YouTube content folks know what is going to resonate with the audience, what is going to drive retention, what is going to actually drive the best performance for an ad unit. And the truth is that, like, it is hard to measure full funnel conversion on these spots, but the more engaged a consumer is with that content, the better the brand retention is, or the brand recall is, and ultimately the better conversion is. And we've seen our brand partners have been really satisfied with the results of that, and they continue to renew with us, and we continue to add more to the fold. And the better that all goes, the more discerning we can be, and the more we can say no to brands that feel like they're a little bit outside of the bullseye.
I think we've got a couple minutes left. I wanted to ask about two partners in particular, not brand partners, but one, YouTube, how you're feeling about them. And then I also want to ask about the leagues and your relationship there. But starting with YouTube, you obviously spent time at Spotify, understand how platforms think. How are you feeling about YouTube's direction and how reliant you feel like you guys are or want to be on that platform going forward?
I mean, YouTube's been great. Like, we have an incredible relationship with them. All sorts of various different leaders. Jesse has been to a handful of San Francisco sporting games with Neil Mohan in the last couple of months.
Yeah.
I do think that, any business needs to be mindful about like single point of failure and to over reliance on any one platform. So we do aim to diversify and expand, so that we are protected in the event that there are systemic challenges or headwinds, but or sort of, yeah. But I think that YouTube is core, fundamental to us, and they have been a great partner, and we'll continue to work really closely with them, both helping them innovate the platform to build features that are designed for great creators and for the mass market of creators, as well as finding new brand partners, working together with them, as well as participating in all sorts of different exciting events and initiatives. I mean, we love YouTube and are very grateful for the partnership there. Same thing with the NBA. The NFL, we've started to develop a relationship with.
Harder nut to crack, the NFL.
Yeah,
at least in our world. I don't know about your world.
For I'm sure that's true. I mean, I think
the NBA is also more germane to the business that
I
you
think
guys
that
have.
for us, it's more just an order of operations, right? Like, the basketball content was at the core. The relationship with the NBA is like 5 years old, if not longer.
Yeah.
We just started to work with we just expanded into football content and American football and soccer football content in the last like 12 to 18 months. And so that has opened up relationships with the NFL, MLS, certain European leagues. Jesse and the team just went out to Torino for a video shoot with and spent time with the Juventus team. We just got an inbound from Serie A. So like, that is all starting to percolate, and the timing is really good because World Cup's coming to the US or to North America later next year. But I think these relationships are really symbiotic. I think that I think in the beginning, it was the NBA that like we were chasing and trying to
The
get
NBA has,
involved.
I think, historically said our business is basketball. Anybody else who's trying to make basketball content is to some degree a competitor, but I think that they have.
Well, they have really
embraced that.
embraced.
Yeah.
I also think, I joined this business like maybe 2.5 years ago, and I think the scale we've achieved has gotten attention. I also think that the creator economy has gone from, 2 years ago
Sure.
or maybe 4 years ago, this thing that was like developing
Right.
and had a lot of promise, to now all of a sudden, I think everyone realizes this is not just like a
Right.
side thing. This is an actual like sea change in the entire media environment. And, and honestly, I look at folks like Bill Simmons and Dave Portnoy and these people who like sort of blazed the trail initially from a analysis standpoint. Even Stephen A. Smith, right? Like the way that power dynamic has gone from ESPN to or Pat McAfee, right?
Sure.
Like two guys who did it their own way, and then the big 800-pound gorilla sports network came to them on their terms. And I think that, all of these big players realize that like, the old way of going to market through a limited number of film distributors, a limited number of publishers, a limited number of TV networks and cable operators, like that era is long gone. And the world is now comprised of brands that are individuals who have like a deep connection with their audience and
and their distribution channels in themselves.
Exactly.
If you want to reach these fans.
Well, and that's one of the most fascinating things,
Right.
which is that like, YouTube creator, you could think about, I think a lot of people think about it as like a production company.
Yeah.
But it really is like a studio. It's a production company and a distribution mechanism. There's this creator in Brazil named Casemiro who has this channel called Kaze TV. And over the last 2 years, he's been distributing like major South American soccer matches on his YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And the leagues are actually like coming to him and being like, hey, can we distribute on your channel?
Yeah.
And that is so far from anything that I think most people would think about, but it makes sense if you see sort of the trends and the direction things are going.
It also means that instead of having 4 competitors, you now have unlimited, right? 400, 4,000, 400,000, whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think, but I think the question becomes like, if you're trying to reach different audiences, is that a problem because now you need to figure out how to go to market through 500 different channels, or does that become an opportunity where you can reach many more people in a much deeper way? Your engagement can get to a different level. And I think those are hard questions. It's certainly more complicated than just being like, all right, we got to get this on ESPN and we got to get this on HBO. And those are the 2 sports channels that really matter. But I think that, with the complexity and the challenge comes more opportunity, and you kind of got to sit down and like pick through it and figure out what the right way to approach it is. And I think the folks that figure that out are going to be the ones who take this change as an opportunity to shape where it goes rather than just be like chasing it.
Zach, we like to end the show by asking folks about crazy ideas, failures, things that you've learned in the job in the first few years that surprised you. Would love to hear some story about early on, something you learned that was not something you expected about diving into this corner of media and e-commerce.
Well, that's a tough one on the spot, but I guess I would say so. Like this summer, we experimented this last year with events a bunch. We put on a ticketed event at VidCon, and we ended up selling like 4,500 tickets to it, and like we had a 7,000 person arena. I wouldn't say we almost filled it, but like it felt pretty full. We also put on 2 sports clinics in LA over the summer, and those both sold out. And so I think one of the things that surprised me is how the live event and live experience component of this business, how frothy it can be. But also one of the things that I didn't expect is how difficult that is to scale. Because, time spent is such a huge, like our most precious asset is production time. And so every minute taken away from production time, like we have to really justify that. And so it's both exciting that live events and community is this like untapped opportunity for us. And it's exciting to have a strong signal there. But it's also like one of these real challenges. How do we figure out how to do that in a meaningful way and actually add value to the consumer and scale it? And we don't want to jump into these things and then figure out halfway that like we didn't think that through properly. So that becomes one of those things that we're gonna like put a pin in for now and try and figure out how do we do that right over time.
Well, when you figure it out, Jacob and I would like an invite
Let's do it
to see
together.
what the new one is.
Say, I think you've set Sportico history. I think it's the first time we've recorded a podcast with someone's business partner / boss in the room with them.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you doing that.
Yeah. I'm sure that didn't make me nervous or anything.
All right. He is Zach Miller. He is the president of Bucketsquad. With me, Jacob Feldman. You can find him on Twitter at JacobFeldman4. I'm Eben Novi Williams. I am on Twitter at Novi_Williams. The show is produced by Justin Greenewald. Thank you very much to Justin. And Sportico's social media team, which is Carol Winston, Matt Palacio,
in the room,
and Sebastian Milo, would like you to know that you can follow the show at Sporticast, which is the hub of the Sportico Media Network.